Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. No sealed cover. The Supreme Court rejects the government's move to submit its suggestions on setting up an expert panel on investor protection in a sealed envelope after the Adani controversy. The court orders for a copy of the government's reply to be shared with the petitioners and reserves its judgment. Adani Group stocks under pressure today too. The group's market cap erodes by another 10,000 crore rupees. Billionaire investor George Soros questions Prime Minister Modi's silence, says the controversy can spark the revival of democracy in India. Union Minister Smriti Irani hits back, accuses Soros of attacking India and attempting to weaken democracy. The Sensex and the Nifty snap a three-day winning streak but managed to end the week in the green. A CNBC-TV18 analysis shows 56% of Nifty companies have seen their earnings estimates downgraded. A CNBC-TV18 news break now confirmed. Auto component maker Minda Corp acquires nearly 16% stake in rival Pricol for 400 crore rupees in the open market. Pricol's managing director tells CNBC-TV18 the company is not for sale. Claims to have the backing of institutional investors. Minda says this is merely a financial investment. Indigo is back in business, says the CEO Peter Albers, after a strong third quarter. Confident of achieving the higher end of the 13 to 17% capacity outlook, expects 40 new aircraft deliveries in 2023. Upbeat on international operations, hoping to add 10 to 15 new destinations both at home and abroad. That's an exclusive. Oil marketing companies press for a fuel price hike, say the forex loss due to rupee depreciation has not been priced in. IOC and HPCL have reported losses to the tune of 12,000 crore rupees in the first 9 months of this financial year. The US is not looking for a Cold War with China, says President Joe Biden. Says he expects to speak with the Chinese president over the balloon incident, but rules out an apology to China for taking down the balloon. Also clarifies that the 3 other unidentified flying objects that were taken down were not linked to China. After sacking 90% of its India employees, Twitter scales down its operations even further, shuts down offices in Mumbai and Delhi, continues to operate the Bengaluru office, which houses a few engineers, as Elon Musk's mission to slash costs continues. Neil Mohan becomes the new chief executive officer of YouTube, joins the long list of Indian origin CEOs leading big tech companies. The 49-year-old has previously worked with Accenture and Google. Less than 100 days before the state elections, Karnataka's chief minister presents a revenue surplus budget with no tax hikes. The total budget outlay crosses 3 lakh crore rupees. Bengaluru gets more funds to expand metros, roads and drainages. Well, we do have a packed show lined up for you, but as always, let's start with the day's market action. The Sensex and the Nifty snapping a 3-day losing streak, but did manage to end the week in the green. The Sensex down over 300 points, the Nifty lost nearly 100 points. That was the story for today. The Nifty Bank declined over 500 points. Mid-caps also saw sharper cuts compared to the blue chip stocks today. But the big story this evening, the Supreme Court has rejected the government's move to submit its suggestions in the Adani case in a sealed cover, calling for more transparency. The court has said that the proposals made by the government to protect investors in the wake of the fall in Adani stocks must be shared with the petitioners in the matter. The court has reserved its final order for now. Ashmit joins us now to take us through what transpired in court today. Ashmit, take us through the observations made by the Supreme Court in this matter, and more importantly, where does this now leave the proceedings?
Well, when the Supreme Court had asked the government as to what its stance is as far as the Adani-Hindenburg case is concerned, the Solicitor General earlier this week had said that it will be filing the government's reply only in a sealed envelope, only for the eyes of the judges, that the government does not want to spook the global markets and the global investors. That matter came up for hearing today, and the Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud, had some interesting words to share. Chief Justice Chandrachud said that he just cannot accept these sealed cover submissions that are being made by the government, that the question here is of an expert committee to review the current framework in place, and that it cannot have this exercise being done under the garb of a sealed cover envelope. Went on to say that there needs to be full transparency, it needs to be a public process, that this affidavit that the government has filed should be shared with all the stakeholders, and that if it is done under the garb of a sealed cover, it will increasingly look like a government committee and not a Supreme Court appointed committee, and therefore, to enjoy full confidence, the Supreme Court said that it will take the mantle upon itself. That's part one. But what will be the focus area as far as this expert committee committee is concerned. Well, keep in mind that the Supreme Court initially had begun to look at the investor wealth erosion and subsequently the investor protection framework in place. But subsequently, the petitioners, the very many of them, they've raised a number of questions. The role of LIC, of public sector banks, of audit firms, corporate governance norms as far as Adani is concerned, especially with respect to red flags raised by the Hindenburg report. These were all suggestions that have been made in lieu of that expert committee by the petitioners, and the Supreme Court said that while suggestions are welcome to all sides, it will not be accepting recommendations on who should be a part of this expert committee. That is a burden the Supreme Court said it will take upon its own shoulders. So towards that end, the Supreme Court reserving its judgment today, the Solicitor General trying to suggest that perhaps the ED or the CBI should be a part of it. But that's a big question. Whether or not they will be a part of it, the Supreme Court will decide. The clarity on the way forward on the Adani Hindenburg case will be given by the Apex Court when it does finally come out with its orders for today, reserving its judgment.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Let's see what the order says. The order has been reserved by the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the shares of Adani Group stocks continue to remain under pressure. 6 of the 10 group firms managed to close higher, but despite this, the group has seen its market cap erode by 10,000 crore rupees today. Overall, the Adani Group's market cap stands at 8.5 lakh crore rupees. It's lost nearly 11 lakh crore rupees since the Hindenburg report was released. Meanwhile, billionaire investor George Soros has questioned Prime Minister Modi's silence and said the controversy can spark the revival of democracy in India, following which Union Minister Smriti Irani hit back, accusing Soros, and I quote, of attacking India, and I quote again, of attempting to weaken democracy, end of quote.
Adani is accused of stock manipulation, and his stock collapsed like a house of cards. Modi is silent on the subject, but he will have to answer questions from foreign investors and in Parliament. I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India.
George Soros, an international entrepreneur who hedges bets against many countries, has now declared his ill intentions to intervene in the democratic processes of India.
The government there responding to George Soros. Let's move on to earnings now. Earnings season is coming to a close, and there's been a whole host of earnings downgrades across corporate India for the third quarter. 56% of companies that comprise the Nifty 50 index have in fact seen downgrades. Prashant is standing by with the details. Prashant.
There have been earnings downgrades galore, as the title suggests. And just for the purpose of, to explain what we've done is we've taken what earnings expectations for FY24 were 1 month back before the earnings season started and how they've moved as earnings have come through. So earnings 1 month back and earnings now, right? And these are estimates because what markets focus on is earnings surprises or disappointments incrementally. I'll start with the Nifty 50. In the case of Nifty 50, 56% of the companies have seen earnings downgrades. That is 28 companies. 5 companies have seen no change. 6 companies have seen very small change, minor upgrades between 0 and 1%. And 11 companies have seen upgrades. 11 is what? 22% have seen upgrades. So 56% have seen downgrades and 22% have seen upgrades. Now let's quickly tell you where are the upgrades and downgrades falling. I'll start with upgrades, smaller list, banks and financial services, as you can see, some FMCG and auto, Bajaj Auto there. Where are the downgrades? As you can see, it's widespread actually. Divi's Laboratories, Tata Steel, Kotak Bank, Bharti and Apollo Hospitals. This is all, by the way, Bloomberg best consensus data that we are putting out. So it kind of averages out all the extremes. So these are the downgrades on the biggest downgrades on the Nifty companies. Let's now expand the horizon and basket to NSE 200, right? So you can say this will include some of the best top mid-caps, etc. as well. So in the NSE 200 list, we've seen downgrades for 57% of the companies. That's 113 out of 200 companies have seen downgrades. 9 have seen no change. Under 1% upgrades are 19 companies, so as good as nothing. And upgrades from 59 companies, not from, but market has upgraded estimates for 59 companies. That is about what, 30%. So 57% have seen downgrades, 30% have seen upgrades in a wider basket. Again, let's just tell you where the biggest upgrades and downgrades are. LIC, Bank of India, PSU banks and financials is a theme that you will see quite a bit. Bank of India, Canara Bank, IDFC First and Bajaj Finserv. Actually, this is all financial services where we have seen, at least in the first plate, upgrades from. And then you also seen upgrades from Torrent Power, Tata Power, Petronet LNG and Indian Hotels, so as to speak. Now come to downgrades, where the list actually is long and it's quite interesting as well. And I've kind of tried to bucket this into themes, right? So the new age companies, Zomato, Nykaa, you can see the downgrades for FY24 estimates, 24 and 23%. Consumer durables, Crompton, Whirlpool, big downgrades. Dixon, of course, is the poster boy for PLI, manufacturing, etc. That's seen a 15% downgrade. The consumer names, right? High P consumer names. You look at this. ABFRL, Page Industries, United Breweries, Info Ed, Jubilant Foodworks, all 10% and more in terms of downgrades. And then Pharma, Divi's, Laurus, Gland Pharma, Lupin have also seen their earnings expectations move lower. Metals, so some repetition, Tata Steel I mentioned earlier, SAIL, industrial company like Linde India down 12% to FY24 earnings, and Indus Tower, Bandhan Bank and Z are some of the others which have also seen earnings getting pulled back. To put a comprehensive picture, I zoomed out more. So this is, we talked about Nifty 50, Nifty 200, top 200. This is NSE 500, right? The widest basket. And you can take a look at what's happened here. For non-BFSI companies, that is 422 out of 500 companies, profits are down about 12% on a year-on-year basis.
Well, 56% of the Nifty 50 companies have seen their earnings being downgraded. Prashant, many thanks for joining us. Our next story, and this is a big one, it is a confirmation of a CNBC-TV18 news break. It's a deal that we told you was in the works, and today it has happened. Auto component major Minda Corp has acquired a minority, that's 15.7% stake in rival Pricol. Remember, CNBC-TV18 had reported that Minda was on the lookout for a stake in Pricol through a reverse book building exercise. Matthew Thomas reports on whether this changes the landscape in the auto component space on a story that was broken by CNBC-TV18's Nimesh Shah.
So Minda Corp is looking to acquire 15.7% stake in Pricol. Do remember, this they are looking to acquire not from the promoters but from the open market. There is an official communication from Minda Corp that they've managed to acquire 15.7% from the institutional investors.
At 400 crore rupees, Minda Corp's acquisition of a 15.7% stake in fellow auto component manufacturer Pricol took place through the open market. That works out to an average price of almost 209 rupees per share for a minority stake. Now, this has sparked speculation that a hostile takeover may be on the cards. But Pricol, speaking to CNBC-TV18 before Minda announced the acquisition, was adamant that it was not for sale.
I definitely do not want to sell. I'm 1,000% committed to this business. No, they are competitors through one of their businesses, but we have taken away a lot of market share from them. I don't see any synergy in working with them.
Pricol added that it has the numbers to stave off any hostile takeover. As of December 2022, Pricol's promoters hold 36.5%, various mutual funds together hold a little over 4%, FIIs hold 12%, and Singapore-based private equity firm Phi Capital holds 5.7%.
Since then, I have spoken to a couple of our key institutional investors as well, and they are very firmly backing us as well. So if Minda has such a plan in place, I'm not aware of it, and I think we have countermeasures to take them on.
Minda itself has indicated that it is not on the prowl for a hostile takeover. Its disclosure to the stock exchanges after the open market transaction said, and I quote, "This is merely a financial investment without providing the company any special rights in Pricol Limited other than the rights as a shareholder of Pricol Limited." End quote. Interestingly, both Minda Corp and Pricol share an investor in Singapore-based Phi Capital. Shareholding data as of December 2022 shows the private equity firm holding a 4.96% stake in Minda. Now, experts point out that both Pricol and Minda have some overlap in the components they manufacture, especially instrument clusters that include the various displays and indicators that enable a driver to operate a vehicle. Pricol is the world's second largest manufacturer of instrument clusters and fuel level sensors for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, enjoying a 50% market share in the two-wheeler segment and a 70% market share in the commercial vehicle segment. Meanwhile, Minda has a 44% share in the two-wheeler segment and a 30% share in the passenger vehicle segment. So a combined entity would mean a much stronger player. But for now, with Minda ruling out a takeover bid and Pricol saying it will fight to remain an independent entity, a boardroom battle seems to have been staved off. In Mumbai, with Matthew Thomas, Arundhati Ramanan.
Well, this is going to be an interesting story to track. Into the aviation space, after reporting a strong quarter, Indigo's CEO Peter Elber says the airline is confident about demand going forward. Speaking to me about Indigo's expansion plans, the Indigo CEO said the airline is expecting deliveries of 40 more aircraft to its fleet this year and is hoping to add another 10 to 15 new locations to its network. Speaking on Air India's large aircraft order, Elber said it speaks a lot about India's aviation market growth, adding that India is an upcoming aviation giant.
Third quarter have been a wonderful and good quarter for us, which was actually, to be fair, long awaited for. After all the difficult quarters we had throughout COVID and even the first quarters recovering from COVID, solid demand we're seeking made us to be confident looking to the future. The solid market demand, the upbeat economic situation in India, all these factors make us very confident in looking forward and basically providing a capacity guidance which we set initially for the entire full year 23 in the range of 13 to 17%. Well, we have indeed the supply chain challenges, which is a global challenge indeed. We have taken various measures to address that. One was to extend some of the existing leases and keep some of the fleet in the operation, which we were initially supposed to return. We have introduced a wet lease operation in order to deal with that. Again, all temporary measures to deal with the global supply chain challenges. With the growth of India, with the economic development of India, with the position India is taking more and more on the global stage, and with foreign investments coming in and Indian manufacturers making products here and exporting them, we do see clearly an international growth which is stepping up. I do expect that this 10 to 15 new destinations would be roughly split 50-50 between domestic and international.
And you can catch the entire conversation with Indigo CEO Peter Elbers at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. A quick check of some of the other headlines tonight. The 49th meeting of the GST Council will be held in the capital on Saturday, the 18th of January. The meeting is likely to discuss setting up appellate tribunals and mechanisms to curb tax evasion for pan masala and gutka. A report by a group of ministers on setting up appellate tribunals is likely to be taken up by the Council. However, the proposal to reduce the tax on cement is unlikely to be discussed in the meeting that takes place tomorrow. After concluding its probe across BBC's offices in Delhi and Mumbai, the Income Tax Department has issued a statement. It accuses the broadcaster of tax evasion by non-disclosure of income. The department said that the survey resulted in unearthing of crucial evidence by way of statement of employees, digital evidence and documents, which will be further examined in due course. It doesn't say what the evidence is. The BBC has also issued a statement, but it issued the statement earlier today before the IT department statement, saying that it stands by its colleagues and journalists who will continue to report without fear or favour. Relief for alcohol companies United Breweries, Sab Miller and Carlsberg. The Supreme Court has stayed the Competition Commission's penalty of 860 crore rupees over alleged cartelisation. The court has agreed to hear the plea by the three companies against CCI's penal order. The court has also issued a notice to the CCI seeking a reply on the plea. Crude oil prices remain under pressure, Brent hovering around the $83 mark. This week, crude oil prices have lost more than 2%. Meanwhile, European natural gas futures have fallen below 50 for the first time in 17 months. This is largely attributed to the increased inflow of LNG from the US and Qatar, offsetting the lack of Russian gas. Oil marketing companies are pressing for a fuel price hike. We learned from industry sources that oil companies are pushing for an increase in fuel prices, citing forex losses and rupee depreciation. This after companies like IOC and HPCL reported losses of over 12,000 crore rupees for the April to December period in FY23. Sapna Das joins us now with more. Sapna, what are oil companies asking for?
Well, indeed, oil companies have made a renewed pitch so that they should be allowed to at least increase prices, at least marginally, if not on products, all products, at least diesel. We are given to understand by the industry that there are still cash losses on diesel. And this is despite some profits that the companies have shown in Q3. Plus, also the forex losses have not been factored in the pricing. And if you look at the forex losses, at least of two of the companies, that's a substantive number, over 10,000 crores. Similarly, in terms of the consolidated loss incurred by the companies in the first 9 months of the current financial year, that number is also significant. So to speak, they are indicating that it's by taking care of other businesses or other revenues that have come in from other businesses, that is how they have been able to recoup the losses in Q3. So the situation is not very pretty, so to speak, and going forward, unless the price freeze on petrol and diesel is not lifted, I suppose this is a situation that's going to continue, especially since Finance Ministry has been very clear, no compensation for petrol and diesel losses.
Well, the wait might continue for oil marketing companies. Sapna, many thanks for joining us. Neil Mohan has become the new Chief Executive Officer of video sharing platform YouTube, and he joins the long list of Indian origin CEOs leading big tech companies. The 49-year-old previously worked with Accenture and Google before he moved to YouTube. And speaking of Google, the company has laid off more than 400 employees in India, and this is part of its global cost-cutting drive. Reports suggest an email was sent out to the concerned employees. Now, just last month, Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, had announced that 6% of its workforce will be trimmed. From Google to Twitter, the cost-cutting drive continues. After laying off 90% of its staff in India, Twitter has now decided to shut down 2 of its 3 offices. The Bengaluru office continues to house a few engineers, but offices in Mumbai and Delhi have now been shut down. Ritu standing by with more details. Ritu, so virtually bare presence now here in India for Twitter.
That's right. We understand that after laying off more than 90% of its India staff, Twitter has now closed down 2 of its offices in India, and we've been given to understand that these are Twitter's Mumbai and New Delhi offices. The company continues to have a shared office space in Bengaluru, which is its 3rd location in India. Now, this, of course, is part of Twitter's efforts to cut costs globally, and no different from what Twitter has been doing in some of its offices in other parts of the world as well. Now, we understand that only 3 people remain at Twitter India. That is 3 people who are working for Twitter India, and this includes the country lead and 2 other people who are covering the North and East region, as well as South and West regions for Twitter in India. Now, all of these 3 people, we understand, are currently working from home and not in offices. Now, Twitter's Bengaluru office mostly staffs engineers who report directly into the US headquarters. So technically, they're not part of the India team, and it is unclear how many of them still remain in the engineering team in Bengaluru. Now, the company has been in a bit of a flux since Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover and seen a massive drop in revenues. While Musk has hinted at bankruptcy in the past, in late 2022, he did claim that Twitter was no longer in the fast lane to bankruptcy, but it still wasn't secure.
Ritu, many. Welcome back. You're watching India Business Hour. US President Joe Biden says that he will speak with China's Xi Jinping after US fighter jet shot down a suspected surveillance balloon that belonged to China. Biden added that the US is not looking at a new Cold War and that they see competition, not conflict, with China. Biden has ruled out any apology to China for taking down the balloon. He also clarified that the 3 other unidentified flying objects that were taken down are not related to China.
We seek competition, not conflict with China. We're not looking for a new Cold War. We don't yet know exactly what these 3 objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country. The intelligence community's current assessment is that these 3 objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research.
The Election Commission has awarded the Shiv Sena's bow and arrow symbol to the Eknath Shinde camp. The move comes as a blow to the Thackeray camp, which has laid its claim over the symbol. The name of the party, Shiv Sena, also belongs to the Eknath Shinde camp. That's as per the EC. Uddhav Thackeray camp is likely to approach the courts against the Election Commission's ruling. Less than 100 days before state elections, Karnataka's Chief Minister presents a revenue surplus budget with no tax hikes. The total budget outlay crosses 3 lakh crore rupees. Bengaluru gets more funds to expand metro roads and drainages. The death toll in Turkey and Syria due to the earthquakes has crossed 45,000. A 47-member team of the National Disaster Response Force, along with 2 dogs, Rambo and Honey, returned to India from Turkey after a 10-day rescue operation. India's NDRF miraculously rescued a 6-year-old girl, and it is this dog squad that was instrumental in detecting the little girl's whereabouts under tons of rubble. This 47-member team was among 101 NDRF personnel dispatched to Turkey in 2 separate batches. The co-CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, is upbeat on the company's growth prospects in India. Speaking to a select group of journalists in the capital, Sarandos said India is the fastest growing market for the company. He also said that Netflix aims to become an exporter of Indian content. He believes that Netflix is not going to scale back from its $17 billion content budget globally. He admitted that 2022 was a tough year for the company, but Netflix did manage to reignite growth in the second half. He's also confident that the current pace of subscriber addition is sustainable. Netflix added 7 million paid subscribers in Q4, taking its total subscriber base to 231 million. Govt Group's real estate arm is acquiring late Hindi film actor Raj Kapoor's bungalow in Mumbai's Chembur suburb. The company had earlier acquired RK Studios from the Kapoor family to develop a premium residential project in 2019. Zinia Baria reports on why this property carries significance and how Godrej Properties plans to preserve its cultural heritage.
Godrej Properties has bought Devnar Cottage, the iconic bungalow which belonged to the late veteran actor and filmmaker Raj Kapoor. Located in Mumbai's suburb of Chembur, this sprawling 2.2-acre property has been in the Kapoor family for over 75 years. The bungalow is more than just a building. It holds immense cultural and historical significance, having served as a hub for Bollywood's most iconic stars, directors and producers. The bungalow has also served as the venue for many famous parties where the who's who of Bollywood would gather to socialize and network. The land has been purchased from the Kapoor family, the legal heirs of Raj Kapoor. This deal is a follow-on to Godrej Properties' 2019 acquisition of RK Studios. Godrej is developing a premium mixed-use project on that land, which is pegged to have a sales potential of 500 crore rupees.
Godrej Properties has acquired Raj Kapoor's bungalow, which will make way to Godrej's second legacy property with the Kapoor family after RK Studios. Like the previous one, the new one also promises to transform this iconic property while still keeping its cultural significance. In Mumbai, Zinia Baria.
And before we wrap, a video clip of a 14-year-old girl smashing sixes in Rajasthan's Barmer has gone viral on social media. Mumal Meher received praise from the legendary Indian cricketer himself. Sharing her video, Sachin Tendulkar said he really enjoyed her batting. BJP State President Satish Punia gifted her a cricket kit. And on that sixer, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do remember to stay tuned to CNBC-TV18 on Saturday. We will bring you updates from the GST Council meeting. But till then, have a great weekend.